It's nearing the end of the year and I'm thinking of making something special for festive gatherings. I'm going to make a set of stacked dishes inspired by the shape of a Christmas tree or conifers. So the layers get smaller towards the top and they need to stack seamlessly into one another. So with all those dishes to make, let's get started. So I'm preparing 4 pieces of clay, a 1.4, a 1.2, a 1 kilo, and another 1 kilo piece of clay. Now I start with the base. The largest dish forms the base of the tree. I start by centering the clay. And then I push down and open out. And now I pull up the walls. I'm keeping the rim very even by compressing every time I get to the top. And now that I have the height, I can start to shape. I need to push outwards where the branches start. It's quite a sharp angle and I need to do it bit by bit, very carefully. I need to leave plenty of thickness in that sharp angle, otherwise it will collapse. So I'm pushing out very gently. And then when I have the rough shape, I can start to accentuate the sharpness of that angle with my rib. I think that looks okay, so I measure with some calipers and set aside. I set it aside to dry on the bat. Now I take the 1.2 kilos of clay and I start to center. This will essentially be the same shape, a little smaller, and I need to leave a little more clay in the base to trim a flange. So making this second dish is very similar to the base. So let's speed this up a little. And once again, measure and record, and we'll leave this one on the bat to dry. Now I take 1 kilo of clay and I do it all again. So let's speed through this one too. And once again, I measure and then set aside to dry on the bat. So with the final kilo of clay, we're going to make the lid. Now, once again, the making of the lid is very similar, but I'm going to bring the walls up a little taller. And now I start to form that branch. And now with the extra clay in the height of the walls, I start to gently collar the clay inwards. After collaring the clay, I pull a little more clay up into a neck. And then I collar some more. I keep going with this and slowly bring the top of the walls together. And make sure there's enough clay to join the top really well. And now I'm going to define the shape a little. I'll smooth over it with a sponge. And once again, I'll set aside to dry on the bat. As the lid dries, remember to pierce it with a needle tool to relieve the pressure, otherwise the lid will crack. So I'm starting with the base, and while it's leather hard and still on the bat, I'm just going to trim a little and tidy it up a bit. And then I take each of the other 3 pieces and trim the flange that is going to fit into the rim of the piece below. I need to measure carefully to make sure that the flange is the right size to fit into the rim of the dish below. And now I take the next dish and do the same. And finally, I do the same with the lid. I carefully trim a flange. Now I cut all 4 pieces off the bats, and I'm going to trim them one by one. Of course, the lid is a little awkward to trim, so I'm using a chuck to trim it. If you want to see how I make these chucks, check out my bottle video. So, because I've already trimmed the flange, this trimming is really about tidying up the base of these pots. And we do this trimming with the remaining 3 dishes. Okay, we're done with the trimming. Let's see if these pots fit together. Great. Now it's ready to dry and then bisque fire. And now I'm ready to glaze. I have a simple white Majolica glaze that I'm going to use. There are so many possibilities for glazing this piece, but I'm still filling out the design as I go, so simplicity is probably the way to go here. Dip the lid first. I'm leaving some options for firing open here as it's not going to fit in one piece in the kiln. So I'm thinking I'll stack sections depending on whatever I want to load in the kiln with it. I'm leaving all the bases free of glaze and of course all the rims and flanges too. Great. Once I've tidied them up, they'll be ready for the final firing. So here we are. I'm glad I kept these simple. These dishes have worked out really well. Not only do they serve and store food, but they add a level of surprise and wonder to the table. If you like the idea, but you're not particularly a fan of the Christmas tree, check out my stacking dishes video. It's a little simpler in design and it's super functional. If you do make this serving tree, I would love to hear how you go. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and as always, happy making.